Hello, everybody. Welcome to our next episode of From There to Here. I'm your host, Lawrence Temple, and I have Miss Michaela Broxton with me. She's one of my former students from once upon a time when I was an administrator at Atlantic High School, and she was a star pupil there. And I've been able to talk with her, throughout the years. It's only been a few years. But I want to talk to her as a fairly recent college graduate, kind of about her journey. Because part of the idea of our conversation today is that your journey, even like high school to college to next, it changes, has twists and turns, and what you think you want to do is going to change. So that's all. I don't want to do too much introducing. That's enough. I'll let her talk as we go. So, Kayla, how are you?
I'm doing very well. How are you?
I am great. Let me see. I ask all my guests, you know the phrase elevator speech?
Yes.
Okay. And for those who don't know, elevator speech is if you were in an elevator with someone, they ask you, hey, who are you? What are you about? And in a few seconds, you had to boil down what you were, as unfair as that is. What would be your elevator speech there, Michaela, if you had to give one?
So my elevator speech would go something like this. Hi, my name is Michaela Broxton. How are you? Good, good. So I just wanted to let you know that I am, a film creator, and I'm also a content creator. That's something I've gotten into recently.
Hmm.
And, I really look up to people such as Shonda Rhimes and Oprah. They are very inspirational to me, and I would love to follow in their footsteps in any way that I can.
Oh, see, I could do it 2 hours of interviews just off of what you said right then. You said a whole bunch of stuff. I love it. But tell us, all right. So where did you grow up? Tell us a little bit about little Michaela.
So little Michaela was born and raised here in Daytona Beach, Florida. I was adopted within my family, and I still know everybody in my family. So I grew up in the area, very much going to all the schools nearby, and all my family lived relatively close. And when I got to high school is when I met, of course, the amazing Mr. Temple. And when I met him, I believe it was through band because I was in band all 4 years
Hmm.
and eventually moved up to drum major junior and senior year. And I just remember he would come dancing through the band room just because he heard the music going. It was always one of the funny things for me. But I found my passion for film in high school, actually, which was, I want to say, my sophomore year. I really dug deep in Mr. Brunning's class. I believe he's still at Atlantic. And, I learned a lot through that class, and that led me to my passion. And of course, it's changed doing different things. I first wanted to go through music videos, and then I got more into
Hmm.
film, and then I got more into content creation. So it's always been changing, but it's always been the same passion about film, creating ideas and new things going. You know, so going to college, I went to UNF in Jacksonville, University of
Hmm.
North Florida. And I met some very amazing professors there as well. And they really pushed me to go through my passion. I remember I showed one of my teachers a video I created in high school that only was made of gifs and memes, and it was a lyric video, and he said, this is going to be the future, dealing with AI. This is something that you had an
Hmm.
idea of very early on, and even before AI was a thing, he said, you need to brush up on AI. That's something
Okay.
that's going to be huge, and you did it before it was a thing, so that's something to really look into. So I've been reading books on AI, trying to understand it better since then, because I believe he's right. Just seeing how it's impacted our world already, I think he was spot on. Even with film, I can put in anything I want and it'll create it into a video, pictures, whatever. So he was
Wow.
definitely spot on by saying that. So that's something I've been trying to use to help me as well. And I recently started being a content creator on TikTok and Instagram, and eventually I'll move over to YouTube.
Okay.
And I've been using AI to help me with that as well. I've, made my logos with AI. I've made scripts with AI. I've asked for feedback from AI. And I mean, it's just amazing what it can do. So it's definitely a stepping stone to help me with my career and whatever I really want to go into. So that's just a little bit about me and my past and my passions.
Wow. There's so much there. Um, and I like to think sometimes from the perspective of a person who has counted themselves out and give
Mm.
my guests an opportunity to show them why they shouldn't count themselves out. So let me ask some springboard type questions. Are there people in your family or people that you came up around who like or do the same things that you want to do?
So not really. I'm the tech person, I'm the film person, they understand why I like it and they understand my passion about it, but they pretty much have different passions and different things that they like to do. So I'm pretty much, from what I can think of, the film person, the film and tech person. And that was pretty much through all of my life, I want to say, until I got to college and met people who had the same passion as I
Hmm.
did and made friends with those people and we created stuff together. So growing up, I wouldn't say I was like lonely in that sense because they still supported me in every way and they were
Yeah,
very understanding and they wanted to learn more. It just wasn't their passion. So when I got to college, I was able to share my passion with my friends that I met there as well.
I love that point. Because I think a lot of people limit their dreams or whatever because maybe they don't know a lot of people that like what they like and they feel like maybe it's not for them. But it seems like you're evidence that you can be the only one in your circle for a while who really
Mm-hmm.
is into your thing and you can still do it.
Yeah. And even if, you don't have those people around you, what I've learned is when you start doing it, there will be people that gravitate towards you because of that. So even if you don't have people in your circle, they will
Hmm.
gravitate towards you because you have that same passion. I have a friend who was in band with me a few years ago and he didn't know anything about film, wasn't really interested. But again, he understood my passion and just supported me on it.
Yes.
And through this past week, after starting my channels, he reached out because he wants to start a gaming channel. So he's reaching
Hey.
out for advice, to see if I can edit videos for him just to get him started so he can see what he's doing because he knows nothing about editing and he knows that's
Okay.
my passion and that's what I went into. So again, even if you don't have those people in your circle, like I said, he didn't know anything about this, but he decided he wanted to start it, knew I was into it, and gravitated towards me for advice and all that. So
Okay, I love that. Oh, that's awesome. So you kind of creating your own little world by being your real self.
exactly.
Now, let me see. From what I remember, my spy network says that you spent some time abroad during your college years. Is that right?
Yes, I did. I went to South Korea in the summer of 2022 for study abroad, and I was there, I would like to say, from June 12th to July 24th.
Okay. Can you talk to us about that experience and just in general, the experience of going to a new place, new language, totally different culture? Because I think there are people who think that would be nice, but they're afraid of new things. Tell us how that experience affected you.
So I would definitely say that was one of the greatest experiences in my life. Before I went to Korea, I actually had the opportunity to join a program at my university where we welcome the study abroad students that are coming to our university and we're able to help them and show them around. So through that program, I was actually able to make some contacts before I went to Korea. So I had some friends there when I was able to go. And when I got there, it was definitely a little bit nerve wracking. I believe it was about 13 to 15-hour flight with layovers. But once I actually got there, it just reminded me of why I love the country so much and why I love the culture and everything. As soon as I landed and, you step out those doors, it was just an amazing revelation type of experience for me. So, over the course of the time I was there, I started with this program. It was before the study abroad actually started, where they took us on trips, they took us to shows. They were kind of showing us a little bit of the culture there before we actually had to start going to classes. And that is actually when I made more friends through the study abroad program because
Mm.
we were like, we're all in this together, guys. We need to, make friends and, be able to hang out or go out with each other. So I met some amazing people there as well. And during my free time, I was actually able to go hang out with my friends who are from Korea that I met through our university's program. And they were able to show me around and they were so happy to. It was like they could show me their world like I showed them my world.
Yes.
So it was able to be a back and forth, give and pull type of thing. So, and it was just such an incredible experience. And even with the language, I started learning Korean because I
Yes.
was like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna need to communicate. I got to be able to order food and do all this other stuff. But what I didn't realize is they're just as eager to speak English to us. They love to be able to practice their English if they can, if they know
Okay.
any. they're not as scared as we think. We're probably more scared than they were. I remember a friend of mine, we were just walking around this area called Hongdae. And we went into this little shop because I have a dog and I wanted to get her something, even though she's not going to realize it's from a different country. I said, it'll be cute to just give her a gift from a different country.
Right.
And I walked in there and I was trying to ask him, do you have anything for small dogs? And he said, you don't have to speak Korean. I speak English. And I mean, it's just taken aback. You're like, oh, okay. Well, do you have this? And he was so sweet. And he started this whole conversation with us about, him and his family. And we learned a little bit about him. And, we learned a little bit of history as well. He was talking to us about how, Korean food is such a big thing nowadays. And his
Yeah.
family owned this chicken restaurant. And I was like, I always hear such great things about that and such great things about Korean food in general. But, how did they learn that? And he talked about, during the Korean War, when all the African American soldiers went over there and they taught them how to, cook chicken very well. And then they put their little spin on it. And it's just you learn so much because I didn't even know that as much knowledge as I had. I didn't know that going into that conversation, and
Yes.
just learn so many things and really opens up your eyes. So I always tell people after my experience and even before my experience, if you have a chance to study abroad, do it
Hmm.
because it opens up your horizons. No matter where you go, no matter what you do, you meet all these different amazing people, you make connections. I still have friends that are like, when are you coming back? Like, I'll pick you up from the airport, you can stay at my place. When are you coming? And I'm like, as soon as I get some money. But it's just, you always kind of, I feel like we lock ourselves into what we're comfortable with and
Hmm.
in our
Hmm.
own country and things like that.
Yes.
But as soon as we get outside of that, it's such an amazing experience that I feel like a lot of people don't have the chance to or haven't done yet. And I really, really cannot stress it enough that that is such an amazing experience. And if you have the chance, just go. No matter what, if you're scared, if you don't know what's, just go. Be safe about it, but go. So that's my little spiel on that. I can go on that for hours.
No, I love that spiel. That was perfect. That was perfect. Uh, what and talking about barriers and things like that. All right, so now you've done several things here that I'm going to say traditionally or stereotypically, I'll say
Mhm,
that a lot of times African Americans don't do. You went to
mhm,
another country, you're
mhm.
into Asian, I guess Asian culture or Korean specifically. You
Yes.
even have, we're going to talk about, your social media presence about K-pop, which
Mhm.
doesn't, I guess to my knowledge, you might be teaching me, or at least typically we don't associate that with Black folks. So can you talk to us about not being limited by what people think you should do, meaning what a girl should do or a Black person or whatever, breaking out of those labels. Could you talk about it?
Yeah, so the biggest piece of advice I can give is just be your authentic self no matter what and realize that that is the best version of yourself. Even going through, middle school and high school, I was talking with someone about this recently where, I wouldn't call it bullying, but it was definitely a little bit of, kind of tension where, when people found out I listened to, K-pop or watch K-dramas and things like that, to them, like, it kind of seems like a turnoff to you. Like, from my point of view, it feels like, oh, they just think I'm another one of those people or things like that. It puts you in a box in a way, but you can't think of it that way because you have to realize there's a whole other group of people out there that have the same ideals as you. They think the same way, they enjoy the same music, same TV shows,
Mm,
and just because those are the people that are around you doesn't mean there's more people out there that enjoy that same thing as you. And even as a Black person, it's a little bit harder, because everybody expects you to listen to rap and you have you're probably going down this lane, but you can't get too caught up in what other people think. And I think that's the biggest thing for me is I care, but I don't care.
mm,
Like I always want to make sure that I'm presenting myself in the best way possible or things like that, but at the same time there has to be a limit to what you care about what people think, because
okay.
at a certain point, when you care too much, that's when you stop being your authentic self and you start to put yourself into a box of what other people think of you. And I've definitely had to learn and turn away from that. And even going on my trip to Korea, if I had let those people
Hmm.
turn me away from that and put me in their box, I wouldn't have had that amazing experience and I wouldn't be on the track I am today and I wouldn't have the connections I have today. So the biggest thing is you have to remember to be your authentic self and you have to limit what other people think of you. You still kind of need to care, right? You
Yeah.
need to, make sure that they think highly of you, or that they think, well of you, but you have to limit it so that you can still be your authentic self without being put in that box.
I love the fact that you acknowledge that we do care what other
Mm-hmm.
people think, but there's a limit to how much we need to let that affect us. I kind of think it's dishonest when people say, I don't care what nobody think of me. I don't think that's totally true to anybody, but I love the limits you talked about. I Now you mentioned that when you were in high school, because some of our viewers are like even middle school kids. When you were in high school, I know you did some leadership. You were a drum major. Can you talk about that or other things you did in high school that you feel like prepared you and helped you for the next things that came in your life, even though you're still quite young, but still, what'd you do right in high school or middle school that helped you later?
So I would say the biggest thing that helped me was always being involved. I always had something to do. I always had an after school activity, and I think that not only does that show people, that you have a passion, that you're interested, but it helps you yourself because you're staying busy, you're finding out new things, you're staying interested. And even I remember in middle school, I ran for student government president, and I ended up actually being co-president with Grant Foxman, who I'm still in contact with today. And it gave me my first chance to give a speech to a big crowd for our
Hmm.
graduation in 8th grade. And as nerve-wracking as it was, I didn't know that that was going to come in handy later on, which it really did. Um, and all the practice for it and everything, I was like, oh, I don't want to do this. Oh, I'm nervous. But, I didn't have a choice at that point. And I'm very glad I did, because when it came to my high school years, because I was involved so much, like you said, through band, and I did National Honor Society and homecoming committee, because I was involved in so much, it put me to the forefront of the administrator's mind when it came to my college, or excuse me, my high school graduation for speeches. So I was picked to do a speech for graduation, even though that was during the COVID years. I graduated in 2020.
Oh, wow.
We still did it. We ended up having Mr. Brunning, my old teacher, he would film our speeches, and they would be played at the graduation, which we didn't know was actually going to be in person later on. At the time, it was going to be virtual. So given my history with speeches from middle school, mine was the best delivered speech. I don't want to say best speech overall, but best delivered speech in that
Hmm.
way, because I had that experience, because I knew what to do, and if I had gone into that without that experience, I feel like it wouldn't have been as good. So definitely just keeping, my mind open about things in those years, and being able to do different things and try different things.
Yeah.
And I mean, that still affects me to this day, because I started that so early on. I'm not afraid to try new things, and I'm not afraid to go into different things. And I always learn something, or I always gain something from it. I never feel like I go into a new thing and don't gain something from it. So that is probably one of my best qualities now, because I've been doing that from early on, and because people encouraged me to do that early on in my family and in administration. So that's something that I really love to try and get other people to do. I'm like, don't be scared to try something new. Like, even if it's something I've been through, I'm like, I promise it's such
Yeah.
a good thing. But even if I haven't gone through it, I'm like, we can learn so much from this. We can, it's something that we've never done before. So, they'll see my excitement about it, and that'll kind of draw them in enough to be able to have them go do it. And then by the end, they're like, oh my gosh, you were so right. So that's something that I really, really love, just trying new things and doing stuff like that. And that was installed from early on, whether it was in leadership or not, even in band. When I was in leadership in band, I was convincing Mr. Blackwell to do new things. So it's just an infectious thing that I love to share with people.
I like to lately I've been doing this, call my guests' attention to words that they say repeatedly that they don't even realize. And you have a couple words you said repeatedly, which I think are really instructive. Passion or love,
Mm-hmm.
try,
Mm-hmm.
and new. You said those words repeatedly, and I think that is saying a lot about how you operate and who you are.
Yes, I love the look. Those are my three words. I'll repeat them day in and day out to anybody I know because those are the three words that I have found that, really kind of they actually sometimes turn people off, but given in the right context, it'll turn them on to whatever you're talking about. So,
How I like to talk to people about the evolution of what they like. So, film and content creation, that's your thing. How did that come about? Do you recall your earliest interest in those things? Where did it come from? How did it look? Talk about it, please.
okay, so I've always been a TV movie person growing up. I've always admired people on the screens, and originally I wanted to be one of the people on the screen. I wanted to be an actor, singer,
Okay.
dancer, whatever. But when I got to Atlantic High School, I remember I want to say it was my sophomore year, I somehow ended up in Mr. Brunning's class for the Film Academy. And
Yes.
I had no idea what it was going into it. I really didn't. I was just like, okay, this might be a little cool class. It might be fun. And I want to say by the second or third week, when we really started to get into editing and filming and making content, I said, that's it. This is the side of it I want to be on. And I shared this in that class where, and I don't remember where I heard it from, but where I decided to switch roles. Instead of being in front of the camera, I wanted to try behind the camera. But I've always wanted to be involved in that industry. So it's something that I've really wanted to do ever since probably I could talk or walk, um, which my mom loves the story. When I was younger, I want to say somewhere around like kindergarten to third grade, they
Hmm.
would ask us, well, what do you want to be when you grow up? And, you would think how I am now, I would have said, oh, film. Yeah, film. I said, I want to be a mermaid. So, and my mom
Mermaid.
absolutely loves that. My mom absolutely loves that story because I think for her, it shows how active my imagination was at the time because of all the shows I was watching, because of all that. So she still sees it as being connected to the passion. I just had to realize mermaids weren't real. And then I could come to my real passion. So she really loves that story because it shows that evolution just from whenever that happened to high school when I really did find my new passion. So it was evident very from the very beginning. I was just a little confused in the very beginning. So going from that, when I went into high school, I went into that program and found out that that's something that I truly do love. And
Hmm.
I still have videos on my YouTube channel from those days that I'll never delete because it shows the evolution of when I started
Yes.
to where I've come now. So that's something that I also like to share with people that, if you make it big or you get to a certain level and you're like, oh, that was from like high school. That's embarrassing. I don't want to keep that. I will never delete those videos, no matter how big I get, because it shows
Yes.
people where I started and where I am now. And it can be an inspiration to anybody else. It can be an inspiration to other people who, oh, this doesn't look good, or oh, this is that. You have to remember you start somewhere to where you want to get. There's a timeline that you have to follow. And I'm still making my timeline, and it's just it's a weird experience, but it's always something where I'm learning something new and that I'm finding different things that I like, or I'm finding different things that I like to try, so even, coming into content creation now, that's
Yes.
something new for me because I've gone through, my training for like filming for movies. I've filmed a music video. And then when I went to college, I learned how to do live productions, newscasts, and things like that. But now I'm veering off into content creation. And those are all three very different lanes. Once you learn how to, film or edit these things, they're very different,
Okay.
but they're all going to come in handy for me, at least at some point in my life, because I have those experiences and because I've gone through these different experiences. They're going to come in handy for me. And even if they don't, they've taught me something that I can teach someone else who might be going through that same experience that I've been through.
You have such a varied experience, and again, you use that word "try." You said that another two, three times just now. Also, I love it. I deal with students. I'm in the school world, and I wonder if
Mm-hmm.
you could talk about this. How, if you don't mind saying, how old are you?
I'm 22 years old.
I have encountered students as young as 18. Let's say they just got out of high school, and maybe they graduate, they were dual enrolled. So they had a whole bunch of extra credits. So at 18, they were like college juniors. But
Mhm.
yet, I seem to find a lot of young people who seem to be always convinced, maybe with social media, or whatever, that they are behind. Like
Mm.
if they are not driving a Bentley, then it sounds crazy, but they seem to actually think this way. If they're not wealthy and just established at 18 or 19, I hear them saying crazy things like they're a failure, they're a loser. It's like their expectations to hit it big are just wildly crazy. Could you talk about that, the the pressure, I guess, that people put on themselves that they have to have it all together, all figured out, all successful immediately? Can you talk about that?
Yes, so that is something that I actually have experience in. I've been through that level of social media where you're looking at your friends maybe or famous people and you're like, well, they're younger than me. I mean, there's people out there who have made millions and they're younger than me. And I'm like, well, I'm 22. That's still young, isn't it? Why wasn't I able to do that? Why wasn't I able to go that route? And it's coming back to one of my favorite words. It all comes back down to experience again. And everybody is going to have a different experience. Everybody's going to have a different route. So just because someone else may have made it faster than you or they got a lucky break
Hmm.
doesn't mean that you're not capable of it either. You have to find your route to do it. They had their route. You have to find yours if that's what you want to make happen. And that's something that I've had to learn over the course of this past year after my graduation. I graduated college in August of 23
Okay.
with my bachelor's in, let me get this correct, communication with a focus in digital video production, because that's what I want to do. So
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, this is my path. I'm going to make it. This is how I'm going to do it. But you also have to remember that not everything may go according to your plan.
Okay.
So you have to not only be willing to your plan has to be shiftable. It has to be movable. You have to
Hmm.
be able to change your plan. You can't be so stuck on one plan that when it doesn't work out, everything falls apart. And I feel
Okay.
like that is a big part of what happens too for some people, because I have some of my friends who their plan didn't work out, everything broke down, so they just decided to kind of find just something and stay where they are instead of trying something else that could continue their path further.
Okay.
So that's something that I definitely think is a big hindrance. And of course, with our generation and social media and the internet and everything just being so available to us, is it can be a blessing and a curse, because you have to choose how you're going to view it. If you're
Okay.
going to view social media in the way that, oh, these people are rich, oh, these people are famous, I'm not making it there, that's your viewpoint. Instead, I've had to change my viewpoint to where I'm not just looking at these people, I'm actually following people who are teaching me how to get there.
Oh,
So I've had to change my viewpoint so that I'm not just looking at it like, oh, these people are rich and famous. I didn't make it. They're younger than me. I'm never going to make it. I'm just going to give up. You have to change it to, how am I going to get there? What am I going to do to get there? Who can get me there? Who can I follow to learn from to get me there? I have at least probably 5 to 10 channels that I follow on Instagram alone that teach me film, lighting. Even though I've gone to
hmm.
school for it,
Okay.
it's something that is always changing. So I would like to keep up with the trends. So I have news channels that I follow. I have independent filmmakers that I follow. And, there's these new channels where they can basically send out messages to all their followers. They send out what they're working on, their new setups, and all this other stuff that they're using. And as someone who's not directly in that industry yet, I need that, because I'm like, okay, how can I set this up on a budget? Right. So they have all these big lighting rigs and they have all these big fancy cameras and all this stuff. And I'm like, how can I do that on my budget?
Okay.
So that's something that, it just all comes down to viewpoint. The way that you view it is the way that it's going to be. And, you can talk to people and people can give their input, but you're going
Yeah.
to be the one that has to change your viewpoint if you want it to happen.
That view, boy, that's a very powerful word, the viewpoint, how you look at things. And some people can look at where they are as I'm in the ditch. and other people look at it as, well, this is where I am. How do I climb out of it with what I have? That's one of the most important things I think of this interview. It's not just your tech knowledge, it's your outlook that you've developed over the things that you've been through and where you are. Well,
Yes.
let me ask you in the few minutes we have left, what's on the horizon for Michaela? What would you like to see happening in these next few years or the next 90 years? Talk about the future for us.
Okay. Well, I not only have I been working on my content creation, but I've actually started my own company, Fusion Works Collective Media LLC, and right now that is a marketing company. What I would like to see is, with my knowledge expanding, I would like to see my company expanding into production, and I would eventually love to own my own studio to be able to not only be part of the filming and help the filming, but to be one of the biggest people going into that. So in the next few years, I know it's going to take a while, and I'm willing to change my plans for the journey no matter what comes. But I
Okay.
would really like to see, that company expanding into something bigger. It doesn't have to be all the way to Apple. It doesn't have to be like, all these YouTube. It doesn't have to be like these bigger companies, but I do want to see my company succeed. So that is something I definitely want to work on in the coming years. And like I said, expand it from marketing into production, because production is going to take more money with the cameras and lights and
Yeah.
print and. So I'm starting with the marketing, and I'm kind of going to go backwards: marketing to post production to production to pre production.
Hmm.
So I would like to expand my company backwards because that's the most budget friendly way that I found. So I would love to see my company expand to a full production company that includes marketing, which a lot of companies don't do nowadays, which I think could be, because if you're working on the project, then you're going to have the most insight about the project and know how to market it. And that's my opinion. But I
Got
would
it.
love to see that all together, it can come together as a film production company. And I would love to see it succeed.
Love that. Um, uh, One other thing that hooks onto that, because in talking about your future, you keep talking about learning, like you've learned different things that have kind of shaped how you want your future to go. So I guess my last thing, what would you say to the kid who's 18, he just graduated, or let's say he's about to graduate, and
Mm-hmm.
he says something I think is not real. He says, "Ooh, I graduated school. I'll never have to learn anything again." What would you say to Billy or Sally if you heard them say that?
I would say that you are limiting yourself because no matter where you are in life or what you're doing, or without realizing it, you are always learning. No matter what, you just because you're not sitting down at a table with a textbook and a homework that you got to turn in tomorrow to Mr. So and so, you're always learning. And you have to find your passion and learn your passion, because people always say like, oh, this is my passion, I'm so good at it. No matter how good you are, time doesn't stop. So neither does creativity, neither does the industries. Nothing stops. So that means there's always new things developing, which means if it's your passion, you're eager to learn about it. So no matter what time period it is, if I started film back in, I wasn't born yet, but if I started film back in the 1990s,
Okay.
things have drastically changed. Almost nothing is the same. Maybe some of the techniques that we use, or maybe some of the, shots that we use are the same, but technology is completely different. I mean, look at AI coming out, so stuff is
Yes.
always changing, and you can't limit yourself. Oh, I'll never have to learn again. No matter what you do, you're going to have to learn. You are always learning new stuff. You're going to have to learn to keep up with the times. And the easiest way to keep yourself encouraged to learn is to find your passion and learn through your passion, because it won't feel like learning. It'll feel like you're just having fun.
I love that. You said gave us an encyclopedia of nuggets for us to grow from. Even though I'm deeply offended because you mentioned the 90s, I was like in my 30s then. But you know what? I'll get past that. It's fine. Um, Thank you, Miss Broxton, so much. I look forward, and we look forward to seeing what you're going to be doing in the future. But you just provided us a wealth of things, not just on the tech side, but on the life side. Thank you so much.
Of course, and thank you for interviewing me. It's always been great that you've really been there for not only me, but your students, and that you stay connected and stay encouraging to us. So that's always a big push as well. So thank you for that.